This is the start of a specialty course within TK Academy, where the T and the K stand for Team Knowledge for architects and designers. This specialty course is on the topic of building commissioning. Building commissioning services are not well understood by many within the design and construction industry, but it is crucial in ensuring peak operation and performance of building systems. After completing this course, you will be able to explain the differences between fundamental and enhanced commissioning. You will be able to identify the typical commissioning services associated with the separate phases of both design and construction. You will be able to explain the differences between commissioning services and test and balance services. Finally, you will be able to identify 3 common tests conducted for building envelope commissioning. The commissioning of buildings became commonplace with the rise of sustainable design. As a result, commissioning is often associated with sustainability. However, commissioning has a deeper purpose and contributes more to a building than just sustainability. The definition of commissioning is to bring something newly produced into working conditions and to place it in a state of readiness or operation. The term commissioning comes from naval origins, of bringing a ship into active service after it has been built in dry dock and launched to sea to test its capabilities and seaworthiness. The same thing is done for a building after it is finished with construction. Commissioning is the process of putting a building into operation and testing its functionality. It has sometimes been referred to as the test drive of a new building. We have established that the term commissioning comes from launching naval ships, but how does this apply to a stationary building? What systems are commissioned in a building? Building commissioning is a process of assuring that systems, equipment, and components of a building are designed, installed, tested, operated, and maintained according to the operational requirements of the owner. Essentially, any part of a building can be commissioned, but the focus of commissioning services tends to be on the operational systems and those components that influence building performance. The entity responsible for commissioning services is known as the commissioning provider. This entity, being either a business or an individual, is hired by the owner to be responsible for planning, scheduling, and coordinating the commissioning team to implement the commissioning process. The commissioning provider ideally should be a third-party representative of the owner who is separately contracted from both the designer and the general contractor. Prior terms for the commissioning provider that have been used in the past are the commissioning authority and the commissioning agent. The commissioning authorities serve the same role as a provider as the entity who provides oversight and guidance for the commissioning team. However, the commissioning agent was typically the person empowered by the commissioning authority to be on site during construction to perform the installation checks, functional testing, and to witness the initial startups and training of personnel. Both the terms of authority and agent have legal consequences, and so the terms commissioning authority and commissioning agent are no longer used within the industry. How does one become a commissioning provider? The journey to becoming a commissioning provider does not lay on a typical path. It is not a common college field of study or degree program, and it is not a regulated profession that requires licensure. One can earn a certification as a commissioning provider by means of education, experience, training, and testing. Certification accepts relevant degrees in engineering, architecture, or a related field. Experience must be gained by performing commissioning services within the industry, typically under the supervision of an experienced commissioning provider. Certification is achieved through enrollment and testing through a certification program as those provided by the Building Commissioning Association, the Building Commissioning Certification Board, or ASHRAE's Building Commissioning Professional Certification Programs. After being certified, a commissioning provider must maintain certification through continuing education and professional development. Building commissioning began to rise in implementation along with LEED certification, since LEED mandates commissioning as a prerequisite toward certification. There are 2 types of commissioning applications that are defined by LEED. The first is fundamental commissioning, and it is the basic commissioning services that must be performed on all buildings pursuing LEED certification. In fundamental commissioning, the process includes the review of the owner's project requirements, or OPR, and the basis of design or BOD documents. The team must develop and implement a commissioning plan, and there must be commissioning specifications included in the design documents. The commissioning provider will verify installation and performance of the building systems by conducting on-site checks and observations. Finally, a commissioning report is delivered to the client. Enhanced commissioning is optional, and it can be used to achieve additional LEED credits that can apply toward achieving a higher LEED certification rating. Enhanced commissioning services include all aspects of fundamental commissioning with a few additional requirements. During design, enhanced commissioning includes the requirement for the commissioning provider to review the 50% complete design documents. Enhanced commissioning also requires that the commissioning provider reviews the contractor's submittals, verifies that training has occurred for the building operational personnel, develops a systems manual, and reviews building operations within 10 months of the building completion. Why do we commission buildings? Commissioning a building verifies that the building has been designed and built to the owner's requirements and expectations. It will verify that the correct equipment and components have been installed and the systems have been placed into operation correctly. It optimizes energy use and improves the energy efficiency of the building systems. It reduces operation and maintenance costs and extends the life expectancy of the equipment. For the owner, both the initial and life cycle costs can be reduced. It also improves documentation of what systems have been installed, and it ensures the training of personnel to be able to operate and maintain the building once the building has been turned over. Commissioning must not be thought of as an additional cost or unnecessary service. Commissioning is a valuable investment that can lead to long-term financial benefits for the building owners. A report published by Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory found that the typical return on investment in building commissioning services achieved a payback in an average of 1 to 3 years. As of 2015, the International Energy Conservation Code requires commissioning of basic systems in new buildings. At a minimum, the mechanical and water heating systems are to be commissioned prior to the final building inspection. The code states that buildings or portions thereof shall not be considered acceptable for final inspection until the code official has received and reviewed the commissioning report. This means that the building inspectors are not required to conduct the final building inspection and cannot issue a certificate of occupancy until the final commissioning report has been submitted to the authority having jurisdiction. The International Energy Conservation Code identifies it as the responsibility of the registered design professional, not the contractor, to provide documentation of the systems being commissioned to the authority having jurisdiction prior to final inspection and issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Commissioning is a multidisciplinary process that extends through both design and construction phases of a project. The commissioning process typically begins before design in the pre-design phase, involving the development of the owner project requirements, or OPRs, and the basis of design, the BOD. Often the commissioning plan is developed during the pre-design phase, but it is sometimes developed congruent with design. There is a minimum focus on building commissioning during the design of the project. However, the commissioning specifications are developed during the design phase and included with the construction documents. If the enhanced commissioning process is being utilized, the commissioning provider conducts a design review partway through the design before completion. During the construction phase, the commissioning provider is on-site performing both the installation and operational checks of equipment. Once the project is constructed, commissioning continues in the post-construction phase. When the enhanced commissioning process is being utilized, the observation of training for the facility support personnel and the development of a systems manual are included actions in the building commissioning process. In both fundamental and enhanced commissioning, the final step is the development and delivery of the commissioning report to the owner. The first step in commissioning is the identification and development of the owner's project requirements, also known as the OPRs. The purpose of the owner project requirements is to provide clear and concise documentation of the owner's goals, expectations, and requirements for building function and operation. The owner project requirements are utilized through the project to establish a baseline for design and validation of systems performance. Owner's project requirements indicates that it is the owner who is responsible for developing these, but often the owner will hire a consultant, such as the commissioning provider or the designer of record, to help them develop the owner project requirements to be used for the project. The OPRs serve a purpose in both design and construction. During design, it provides the design team with information necessary to serve as a roadmap for development of design and construction documents. During the construction phase, the OPRs provide the commissioning team with tangible benchmarks to measure success and confirm that the building and systems constructed align with the owner's expectations and requirements that were set forth at the beginning of the project. The next step during commissioning is the development of the basis of design, or BOD. The basis of design is the designer's response and their proposed conceptual approach that will comply with the owner's project requirements. The basis of design documents describe the technical approach each designer proposes for the project and identifies the design parameters that will apply. The designer will identify codes, references, and other criteria that will have an impact on the design. The development of the basis of design document is typically performed during the pre-design or conceptual design phases of the project. Since commissioning is multidisciplined and extends through all phases of design and construction, it impacts multiple parties that are involved through the course of the entire project. It is crucial to develop a commissioning plan that communicates what the scope, strategies, and responsibilities are of all the team members involved in the commissioning process. During each phase of the project, not only does the commissioning plan identify each party's roles and responsibilities, but it will also include the overall process, schedule, organization, responsibilities, and required documentation of the commissioning process from beginning to completion of the project. The commissioning plan should identify all the systems that are to be commissioned and include associated installation and operational checks to be performed during construction of the project. The commissioning plan is usually prepared by the commissioning provider, but it may also be prepared by the architect of record for the project. Commissioning services during pre-design conclude with the completion of the owner's project requirements, the basis of design, and the commissioning plan. Project responsibility shifts to the designers to develop the design and prepare the construction documents. Construction documents include commissioning specifications, which are most often prepared by the designer of record for each discipline. However, these may be developed and prepared by the commissioning provider. The general commissioning requirements for the project are included as a Division I specification section. Other commissioning specifications are specific to each design discipline that is being commissioned. For example, Division 21 may include the commissioning specifications for fire suppression systems. Division 22 would include the commissioning specification of plumbing systems. The HVAC commissioning specification is included in Division 23, and Division 26 includes the commissioning specifications of electrical systems. Any system within a building can be commissioned, but the most common systems to be commissioned are the water and energy consuming systems of the building. LEED certification requires, as a minimum, the commissioning of HVAC systems and controls, automatic lighting and daylight controls, domestic hot water systems, electronic pump sensors, and renewable energy systems. Other than the preparation of the commissioning specifications, the commissioning provider typically does not have much more role during design unless enhanced commissioning is being utilized. With enhanced commissioning, the commissioning provider will perform a review of the design in progress. Design reviews are typically conducted when the design is about 50% complete, with the commissioning provider developing review comments with reference back to the owner's project requirements and basis of design as a baseline to see if the design is proceeding as the owner has intended. While the commissioning provider is reviewing the design documents, comments are developed and tracked on a design review log, which is then given to the designers for response to each of the comments. Incomplete issues are carried forward into a master issues log that is combined with installation and operation comments developed during the construction phase of the project. When design is complete and the project has transitioned into construction, the commissioning provider becomes involved with construction when the system's equipment and components begin to arrive on site and are being prepared for installation. At this point, the commissioning provider will begin to conduct installation checks. which are also known as pre-functional checks. The commissioning provider will verify that all systems, equipment, and components are as indicated in the design and what was specified for the project. They will verify that there are no incorrect parts, substitutions of equipment, and there is no physical damage to the equipment from the shipping and handling of the equipment as it arrived on the site. The commissioning provider will verify that the equipment is properly installed, mounted, and supported correctly, and that the equipment is installed with access clearances necessary for maintenance. They will also ensure that the equipment has proper connections for service and that the appropriate systems have been flushed and cleaned prior to the startup. All these items are per the installation checklist and are checked off as they are verified on site. Incomplete items are provided to the contractor for action items to be addressed. The commissioning provider is also involved with the initial startup of systems and equipment. Prior to the startup of any systems being commissioned, the commissioning provider will review the startup procedures that have been submitted by the manufacturer. The actual equipment startup is conducted by the individual trade contractor or subcontractor. The commissioning provider is present on site to witness the initial startup and to document any issues associated with or as a result of the initial startup. If the initial startup has failed, the problematic items are addressed and a new initial startup process is conducted. After the equipment and systems have been properly installed and gone through initial startup, the commissioning provider will perform the operational checks, which are also known as the functional performance test. Operational checks in building commissioning are tests and inspections conducted to ensure that the building systems and components are installed properly and functioning correctly and efficiently before the building is handed over for operation. These checks help identify any issues that need to be addressed before the building is occupied, ensuring that it operates efficiently and safely. While the equipment is running, the commissioning provider observes the equipment and verifies that systems are operating as designed and intended. Deficiencies are noted and provided to the general contractor to work with the trade contractor to resolve. Multiple operational checks of equipment may occur to bring the equipment into full compliance and optimal performance. It is not reasonable for the commissioning provider to review 100% of the equipment throughout an entire building. In this case, the commissioning provider may conduct a sampling, which is a prescribed percentage of the whole that is observed by the commissioning provider. Sampling may represent a portion of the entire system and offers a representation of the effectiveness of the installation and operation. Sampling is commonly used with decentralized systems such as plumbing fixtures, VAV boxes, heat pumps, and lighting controls. A parallel process with commissioning is the testing, adjusting, and balancing of HVAC systems, also known as TAB. The TAB contractor performs air and hydronic measurements on the HVAC systems and adjusts the flow as necessary to the optimum performance and comfort levels. The balancing is based upon the design flow values required by the mechanical engineer record for the project. Once this is complete, the TAB subcontractor submits a written report which summarizes the test and balance results and notes deficiencies. Testing, adjusting, and balancing is not part of the commissioning process. It is its own parallel process that is used for HVAC systems. However, the TAB report is typically reviewed by the commissioning provider and often attached as an exhibit to the end of the commissioning report. Commissioning is a broader, comprehensive process that ensures all building systems meet the owner's requirements, where TAB specifically targets the performance and efficiency of HVAC systems. Both processes are essential for achieving a well-functioning, energy-efficient building. When enhanced commissioning is being utilized, there is a requirement for the demonstration and training of the owner's facility personnel. The individual trade contractor is responsible for conducting the demonstration and training on building systems. The general contractor is responsible for documenting the demonstration and training event, while the commissioning provider is required to witness that the demonstration and training for the building operational personnel has occurred to satisfaction. Enhanced commissioning will also require that a systems manual document be prepared. The systems manual is very similar to the operations and maintenance manuals. However, there is more content to it. The systems manual should include, as a minimum, the contact information for maintenance and repairs of the system, the equipment information and the excess inventory, instructions for the basic operations and maintenance of the equipment, documentation of the training and attendance records, copies of any special inspections that were performed by the authorities having jurisdiction, and warranty information that pertains to the equipment. With both fundamental and enhanced commissioning, the final deliverable to the client is a commissioning report. The commissioning report will identify the systems that are either deficient or that exceed the owner's performance requirements. It will identify variances from the basis of design and what was included in the construction documents. The commissioning report will summarize resolved and unresolved issues that were tracked on the master issues log and will provide recommendations to the owner for resolution of the outstanding items. The testing, adjusting, and balancing results, or TAB report, is often included as an appendix to the commissioning report. The commissioning process is meant to be a third-party process, and therefore the commissioning report is submitted directly to the owner and the building code official. The architect and general contractor may receive courtesy copies of the report. Commissioning does not only apply to newly constructed buildings. Commissioning can be used with existing buildings as well. Existing building commissioning, also known as retro-commissioning, is a process that involves reviewing and improving the performance of existing building systems. It is an effective means of improving the efficiency and functionality of a building's systems after they've been in use for some time. In the LEED Existing Buildings Rating System, several credits are available associated with the implementation of existing building commissioning. Retro-commissioning involves a thorough inspection and analysis of a building's systems and equipment to identify inefficiencies and operational issues. Based on the findings, recommendations are made to enhance the building's performance, which can include fixing air leaks, upgrading HVAC systems, and improving lighting. By ensuring systems are operating efficiently, retro-commissioning can extend the life of building equipment. Why invest in retro-commissioning services on an existing building? Retro-commissioning can lead to a significant energy savings, often ranging from 5 to 20%, with paybacks typically within a year. Building commissioning is usually associated with mechanical, plumbing, and electrical systems, but any building system can be commissioned. A growing aspect of building commissioning is the commissioning of the exterior enclosure or building envelope. Although building envelopes usually do not have any operating parts, they do have performance requirements that can be commissioned. The building envelope is a critical aspect of the building's energy performance system. The building envelope can be commissioned by performing tests in the three criteria of air infiltration, water intrusion, and transfer of thermal heat energy. The commissioning of the exterior enclosure will involve an air infiltration test. An air infiltration test measures how much outside air is leaking into a building through gaps, cracks, and openings in the building envelope. The test is conducted by pressurizing a room and measuring the leakage rate. A powerful fan, such as on a blower door or other system, is installed in an exterior doorway. The fan assembly includes a panel to seal the door opening. All exterior doors, windows, and vents are closed. Exterior conditions should be ideal, since wind, rain, or snow could influence the building envelope pressure. The fan is calibrated to measure airflow and the pressure differences accurately. The fan is turned on to pull air out of the building, lowering the indoor air pressure. Higher outside air pressure will then cause air to flow into the building through any unsealed cracks or openings. Technicians use tools like infrared cameras, smoke pencils, or thermal imaging to locate specific areas where air leaks are occurring. These tools help visualize and pinpoint leaks. The rate of air infiltration is measured in cubic feet per minute at a standard preference difference, which is usually 50 pascals. Ideally, the building envelope should be tested in both positive and negative pressures. The results indicate the building's overall air tightness. The data collected is analyzed to identify areas that need sealing to improve energy efficiency, indoor comfort, and air quality. Another means of commissioning the exterior enclosure is to perform a water intrusion test. It evaluates the performance of building envelope installations like windows, doors, roofs, skylights, exterior facades, and curtain walls to ensure they resist water infiltration. The building envelope components are prepared, and any potential issues, such as damaged seals or openings, are identified and repaired. Specialized equipment is used to create a pressure difference between the interior and exterior of the building, or to mimic force-driven rain events. Horizontal surfaces, such as roofs, are flooded. For vertical wall surfaces, water is sprayed or simulated rainfall is applied to the exterior surfaces of the building envelope. For both tests, the building envelope could face intense water exposure for upwards of 48 hours. Technicians inspect the interior for signs of water penetration. The results are analyzed to determine the building envelope's ability to resist water infiltration and identify any weaknesses or areas for improvement. These tests are often conducted on mock-ups rather than the actual building enclosure to mitigate the damage from potential moisture failures. The water intrusion test helps prevent issues like mold growth, structural damage, and aesthetic degradation, ensuring the building remains functional and habitable. The final method used for the commissioning of building envelopes utilizes infrared thermography to detect and visualize thermal patterns and temperature differences on the surface of a building. It is a non-destructive test and it is the simplest and easiest test to conduct on a building envelope. It requires no setup and can be performed with minimal impact on the building or the occupants. This method involves having an infrared camera to capture the infrared radiation emitted by the building's surfaces. The resulting images, called thermograms, show temperature variations with different colors representing different temperatures. Thermography testing is commonly used in building envelope commissioning to identify issues such as heat loss, air leaks, moisture intrusion, insulation defects, and electrical faults. This test can also be conducted ongoing as the building ages to visualize the changes in performance over time. It is not time sensitive and does not need to be performed immediately after the building is constructed. This completes our course on building commissioning. Thank you for participating in TK Academy. Please give this video a thumbs up or feel free to leave us a comment. You can also subscribe to TK Architecture on YouTube for additional videos and courses.